In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
I don't know why I always wait. Oh, yep. Okay, now we're ordering. Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking to myself. The on hold music that you guys have playing here is mesmerizing. It is. Yeah. So I'm going to have some extra protein, I think, in the latte today. You guys have that, right? Extra protein? Okay.
Give him extra riboflavin.
Yeah. I want what this guy's having.
I want the extra niacin.
Extra niacin.
All the stuff that's in Wonder Bread that I don't get anymore since I quit eating this shit.
Yeah, what is the deal? Why is everyone anti-Wonder?
It's terrible for you.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
It's fortified.
It's fortified.
Sure. Yeah. There are those people that are, really say processed breads, and all processed grains basically are one of the worst things you can eat. So
enriched.
But I miss, this is going to hit like, 0.000189% of our audience, but that wouldn't be much different from what I usually say. I miss Home Pride butter-topped white and wheat bread from the late 70s. That's the good stuff. That was back when they could make a bread commercial that made you actually want to eat packaged bread, because they showed them taking the loaves out of the oven and then pouring this liquid butter down the center of the loaf. You know how bread makes that little concave area in the middle if it's done right?
I'd love to have that job.
Melted butter down that. The folks at Home Pride butter-topped white and wheat. They have those ads on YouTube. There's not too many ads you can't find from the glory days on YouTube.
You can find everything on YouTube.
Yeah, there's pretty much everything on there.
You can find us on YouTube. We're there.
Well, if you can find us, then damn, they have a lot of content, don't they? So there's a big protein push now. I know that's always been big with the muscle men crowd, the bodybuilder crowd.
Indeed.
The powder, the protein powder. Everything has to have 2 scoops of vanilla protein powder in it.
Well, and I think that this is kind of along the same lines of the cereals with the extra fiber. We were talking about a few episodes ago how fiber has become another one of those really key ingredients for everything. You can get cereal now that's been enriched with fiber, and you can now add protein to any Starbucks. Oh, dang it. I just said their name. Any drink by the Mermaid People.
Siren.
By the Sirens. But yeah, an extra $1 or $2.
Say that to any really dedicated employee and they'll correct you. So it's like, excuse me, do you have anything with the Starbucks mermaid on it? They'll be like, it's a siren, madam.
It's a siren.
Right. Because only the call of a corporate siren would keep me coming back for a $12 Frappuccino daily. I would think protein, you'd probably still want to get it from legumes or nuts or fish or... I'm surprised it's not flavored, though. I would assume you could get cookies and cream protein powder in your siren.
I think you have to go straight to the source for that. You got to go to your GNC, because I know that they make a ton of different, not only protein, but then the caffeinated pre-energy or pre-workout drinks and post-workout drinks.
Yeah, and all that stuff is what the astronauts rejected. That's how they figure out like how to make protein powder flavors. It's like, okay, anything that we tried to make for NASA that tasted like absolute shit and the astronauts wouldn't eat, it's a protein powder for GNC and the other, big
That's right.
bodybuilding, the supplement people, because all of those taste absolutely horrible. We got into making smoothies for a while last year. I want to say somebody gave us a blender, and I felt weird about that. I don't remember why either, but it was almost like a signal, shouldn't you two kids get married already? I mean, when somebody gives you a blender, it's almost like a sign to get married. So it freaked me out a little bit because, I wasn't sure that I was ready for that level of legal commitment again.
Have you ever had a juicer?
No, I've never, thank God, because I know when I was married, my ex-wife went through, the bread maker is always the one that I dread the most, because I've been through that one seemingly dozens of times. Oh, look, I look what I found it. And it's always, I was on Marshall's, had it for 50% off of what it was never marked in the first place. So
yeah, Marshall's is good for that, isn't it?
Well, my friend, Becky, who's finally come to her senses and is having a midlife crisis about the number of items she has in her kitchen cupboards, gave me her bread maker. So it's always the bread maker. And then
the juicer's right behind the bread maker.
Make homemade bread. It's just like, you're not going to fucking make bread. It's just, and they never do, but it's always, oh, I'm going to make bread. And the thing sits on the counter and gathers dust for years, months at least. Yeah, the juicer is also right there, because the thing I find funny about the juicer, unlike the bread maker, which is specifically made for making bread, and you kind of have to stick to that regimen when using it, the juicer, you wind up like the people I've known, they juice everything. Like literally even it's not designed to be juiced, they'll juice it. It's just like, what happened here, Bill? It's just like, oh, those are the last night's leftover pork chops. I juiced them, huh? Look at that. It's like,
yeah, right.
I don't think.
No,
I
think
you wanted to juice.
Everyone
they were dry in the first place.
Everyone tends to go really hard with juicing when they first get a juicer, like really hard. Sure,
it's new, like anything else. Everybody tends to go really hard with sex when they first start dating. So wait 6 months. That's over.
He went right to the sex, didn't he?
Well, because it's the one everybody can relate to, I would think. I mean, that's like anything that's brand new. You use it at first, and then not so much, and then not at all.
Speaking of juicing, so we were talking about the juicer, and when I got one for Christmas, I couldn't get rid of that thing fast enough. Because
speaking of juicing, the spirit of Ken Caminiti visited me the other day. No, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I couldn't get rid of it fast enough, and I think the thing that turned me off on juicing was I tried to make a smoothie with ginger, and if you've ever put little knobs of ginger through a juicer.
Oh, ginger nub, yeah.
It's very deceiving because you put it in there and it goes through the grinder and you don't really see anything come out. And it's
a potent flavor. It's strong.
Well, yeah. And so I was like, okay. So I put a few more knobs in there. Still didn't really see anything come out. And I was like,
Ginger nub, yeah.
Okay. I had like 3 nubs of ginger in this smoothie and it was terrible. And that was when I realized the juicing.
You went triple nub, right?
I went triple nub. I went hard.
That's hardcore.
I went hard.
That is hardcore.
And I can't even remember who I gave it to. I gave it to somebody, but I couldn't get rid of that thing fast enough.
Well, considering you probably juiced with Crystal Pepsi, I don't know that, you addict, you.
You can't put Crystal Pepsi in a juicer?
I think the notion, juicing is one of those things, and just like smoothies, people think that just because they put it in a smoothie,
right,
that it's good for them.
Right.
It's like, so I'm really not sure, and I'm hoping they're not listening because the boardroom tables are ready and waiting for ideas. We should sell smoothies. More smoothies need to come out of the likes of Taco Bell and McDonald's and all these places that are shit hubs for eating terrible food.
There you go.
Because anytime it's in a smoothie, you think it's good for you. I mean, it's like when you walk in and, hey, Todd, what do you got there? And it's just like, it looks like a fifth of Malibu, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Say, oh yeah, it's just some Malibu, but it's going in a smoothie, so it's totally good for me, right? And it's like, yeah, sure. Or you're adding, like you see Donna toss a couple of star crunches in there from Little Debbie. You know, he's like, you started good. It was kale, and then now, and yeah, I like to add as many star crunches as I can to take the bite out of the kale. It's just like, okay, good luck with that. You know, so
you've heard of Tilly Norwood, right?
No, you brought this up to me the other day, and it's apparently the real life Simone.
That's right. It is the real life Simone. In fact, Hollywood's newest actress is AI generated.
She's Hollywood's new it girl. Her name is Tilly Norwood.
Let's get to know each other, and thanks for watching.
Ooh, she's British.
Her photos and videos are all over social media. But Tilly is already causing a major controversy. Why? Because she's not real. She's AI generated.
Tilly Norwood, 100% AI generated.
Tilly is the creation of a Dutch comedian who says multiple talent agents have shown interest in signing the AI actress. The blowback is intense. This is really, really scary, says actress Emily Blunt.
It's a little bit of an unfair advantage,
Whoopi
but
Goldberg.
you know what? Bring it on.
Yeah.
Because you can always tell them from us.
Yeah.
We move differently, our faces move differently, our bodies move differently.
AI protections was a
I don't know,
key sticking
Whoopi.
point
I don't know that I can always tell the difference.
Yeah, and by the way, we're talking about Whoopi paying attention here, not the average American.
Yeah,
We're
right.
talking about, let's take the general population of Tennessee and see if they can tell the difference between Tilly Norwood and Billy Norwood, the next door neighbor, when they're both doing push-ups after a couple of twisted teas on some random Saturday night. It looks like Billy Norwood, but it ain't, because he's an AI thing. This little girl over here, though, she's something else. This Tilly, she got my eye. She is awfully young looking, this Tilly Norwood. She reminds me of an actress who was in a couple of movies with, let me look this up really quick.
It's amazing to me how normal she looks.
Alexandra Pall. She reminds me of a younger Alexandra Pall, actually, and she was in a couple of movies with Keith Gordon. One was Stephen King's Christine. The other one was a pretty funny Rodney Dangerfield comedy called Back to School, both 1980s flicks. But so here's the thing, though. Because,
was that before or after Ladybugs?
Oh, God. Ladybugs was later. Ladybugs was downfall material.
Sorry, go ahead.
And, sadly, looking back on, I love Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, I really do. I love the whole, self-deprecation to no end humor, and he had impeccable timing, and he seemed like just a really super nice guy. After he made it big, he wanted to get every comedian the break that they he felt like they deserved. I understand he was a super sweet man, but looking back at the roles that he became synonymous with, which was typically the fucking plutocrat who's passing hundreds of dollars worth of tips everywhere that he goes.
Caddyshack.
It's a hard time for me. Everybody wants to focus on the John Hughes films and say how terrible they are now because they're all racist and sexist and all this other is. I don't see it. Personally, to me, it's a summation of the times we lived in. There's really nothing too wrong with them. They haven't aged as badly as people say. The Rodney roles where he's, hey, look at here, take 100, no, take 2, and he's just this filthy, stinking rich developer, like Al Czervik when he played in Caddyshack. We love the character, but I'd shoot him between the eyes if I had the chance in a fictitious realm and could get away with it just the same, because he's a son of a bitch. But we love Rodney. So anyway, the Simone thing, though, remember that's Al Pacino's movie,
right,
where he created what basically in my mind is Taylor Swift now, because it was this incredible pop singer who wasn't real. But now we have the real thing in some actress. But what I don't understand is why, how does this work? So how does Tilly Norwood get gigs and then eventually wind up on film to act in anything? Because she isn't
right
a corporeal reality. So
the way I understand it is, think of Tilly Norwood as the CGI T-Rex in Jurassic Park, or CGI shark in Sharknado.
And this guy actually has like the trademark on her look.
That's right. So the Dutch studio that owns her essentially would be the one who would negotiate a contract for Tilly to be in a movie, and then somehow they would utilize their software or proprietary whatever to then make her act and whatever. Yeah.
I mean, I think, again, even though, that side of me wants to just be completely negative about this, I think we have to allow it its place, because they keep talking about how it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. What is real? Define real for me. It seems real enough because it isn't a problem. We laugh at Shrek or Donkey or, Buzz Light Touch or whatever those things were in those Toy Story movies. I mean, we've laughed at Fred and Barney, so all of those things we accept as being artificial creations. They're cartoons to one form or one type of animation or another. Some of it looks, really like, look at Avatar, right?
Right.
That was
exactly.
Roger Rabbit sort of broke ground on that, although that was mixed animation. It was mixed live action animation. But then, Avatar comes out years later and it's supposed to be completely blended, and they pulled it off okay, but we accepted that. So the fact that this is being presented to us as a real person, even though it doesn't seem to be, because the creator hasn't tried to fool us. He's flat out said this is an AI actress. So why we're prejudicial against Tilly Norwood right out of the box, and we're not against any of the characters from Avatar or Shrek or, like I said, any of this other stuff, I don't really personally get that. People are copying an attitude right away because they're sticking to their own kind. And I think we have to be careful here, because even though I'm not crazy about switching on to a completely AI generated platform myself, it's been created by us. And so therefore it seems to have a place in the world. And after all, we may very well be the same damn thing to whatever created us. It's here. And the last person I thought I'd be saying this is myself, but here I am. So
it is an interesting argument. And I think that also you have to go back to, like, what's the difference? I'm glad that you brought up Avatar, because what is the difference between animation or computer generated graphics?
See, that I don't know.
And an
that's
AI.
What I'm trying to sort out in all this.
It's pretty much the same thing if you think about it.
That's what I'm saying, Michael. Maybe I don't understand the technology, and so therefore I'm not connecting the requisite dots.
I think that where the SAG-AFTRA people maybe have an issue with it is, one, it's not a real person, right? So it's not somebody that they can really have in their membership. And so it's not really somebody who's being recognized as a real member of society yet. And I think that that's where the rub really comes with a lot of these actors, is that it's almost like you're creating something that the technology has gotten so good that you're creating something that looks like an actress. It performs like an actor, and maybe people wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Well, that seems to be the big thing. I mean, that's right where Whoopi goes, as soon as AI Whoopi is created, you're going to be able to tell the difference because I move differently and I talk differently. And it's just like, yeah, but the whole point is that it's a replicant. The whole point is that it absolutely, to the finest computer-aged T, mimics your behavior. In my estimation, if the universe has a job, if it has a thing that it's supposed to do, instead of just allow space for us to be, it's to be an engine for creation. So all of the things that it has given rise to within it are supposed to go on and eventually do the best they can to give rise to new things that it hasn't seen or known yet. And this would be one of those examples.
Well, let me run something past you, because I think I've got an idea for those people sitting in that boardroom who are waiting for us to come up with an idea for them. And here's what I would do.
Wait a long time.
Take somebody like Whoopi Goldberg, who has a brand. Like it, love it, whatever. She has a brand. So now why?
People know she's been around a long time.
She's been around a long time. So why not have somebody like Whoopi Goldberg take AI and use it to her benefit? And why wouldn't somebody like Whoopi Goldberg say, you know what? I'm not really an A-list actress, but, why don't I take this AI technology, ingest everything that I've ever done acting-wise into it, and spit out AI Whoopi? And AI Whoopi could probably be a better actress at the end of the day, and she could still star in movies.
Well, we could finally see AI. We'd have to use AI Eric Stoltz, for example, but we could finally see him in Back to the Future as was originally intended before they fired him and replaced him with Michael J. Fox. I mean, we can't, that movie has become so beloved. It's such a milestone seeming, and it is a great film. I'm not knocking it at all. I love that movie. I saw it in the theater the weekend it came out. So, I remember it just the same as anybody or better.
Perfect example. Michael J. Fox.
The only people that are ever going to say Eric Stoltz should have been in that movie are Eric Stoltz and his immediate family and friends. I mean, nobody else is going to replace Michael J. Fox. He's legendary in that role. No, we just can't see him. So that's one of the things I think the tech might allow us to do is go back and tinker with, remember when, like, how would Pete Best have sounded, in the Beatles all those years? Not as good as Ringo, because that's why they fired him. He was a shitty drummer, and they've said so. And Pete has said so since then. He's even been like, well, I didn't show up to gigs on time. I wasn't living up to my end of the bargain. And quite frankly, when they saw this Ringo guy, they said, now that is a real drummer right there. We're going to get rid of this Best. The guy needs to, like, Pete Wurst, maybe he should be German or something like that. Should go to Germany and rename himself Pete Wurst. So,
now, I think there could be an opportunity there.
I can see fun applications, and I also can see extant celebrities, i.e. those people that have been human celebrities for especially a long time, and as you said, have a brand like Whoopi Goldberg, kind of cashing in on the craze early before they actually get run out of the business, maybe by AI Whoopi that is created and actually trademarked by somebody else, because those laws are going to get interesting too. Look, to me, it's all in the name of creation, and all this stuff we're hemming and hawing about right now is all just an entertainment factor anyway. None of it has to do with any, real deep philosophical thought or any, type of ideology that would drive the engines of our society from a political stance, God forbid, or law, when AI starts making laws, I think then, okay, we've got to really start taking a look at how it's being engineered and programmed and what it's saying and what it's doing. But right now, it's all about entertainment. And then we'll see what AI really has up its sleeve to try and help us, because I don't see making Tilly Norwood as really helping or advancing our society in any major way. When AI actually starts to come up with, ways to clean the microplastics out of the ocean or really save the whales or do something else, I mean, I don't know, maybe then we really have something. But nobody seems to be worried about programming it for that, because there's no money in saving the fucking whales. It's all in creating Tilly Norwood and pissing off Whoopi Goldberg.
That's
on the
right.
Views, so.
And it's all about bringing back Sister Act 16, man.
That was my second favorite. I liked Sister Act 12.
Oh, okay. See, I'm telling you, Whoopi could probably, and I think Michael J. Fox, another great example, an actor who maybe isn't, obviously age has brought, not to mention the debilitating disease.
It's Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, he does. And so, take a character like Marty McFly and use AI to spin off whatever in that character. And as long as the actors are getting their due, you would think that they would be on board with that.
Well, they're already making phony trailers for movies that have never been,
and some of them are really good,
and some of them are quite convincing, and I've been fooled by a few of them too. I will say this, I try to not only limit, but I actually will tell YouTube pretty much to fuck off whenever it wants to give me AI channels that are filled with those things, or in particular music. I have a hard time with music. It's weird. And see, that's what I mean. We have our prejudices that are all built in for one reason or another. Like, I have no problem with AI designing something and showing it to me and saying, look how beautiful this landscape design is, or look how amazing this really cool 80s drawing is, or that's fine. I mean, keep the visual art coming all day long, but the replication of my favorite style of music artificially, no. That I drew the line with for me personally, because I don't want to listen to that. I feel like that it needs to be the law. Really, truly, honestly, it needs to be the law in every application, whether it's visual art, whether it's sound, whether it's this acting thing with this Tilly Norwood that's not real or not corporeally real. There needs to be a legal disclaimer that's mandatory that what you are about to watch, listen to, experience, whatever it might be, however you want to word it, was generated by entirely artificial means. Because to me, that's where the real issue we're having comes in, is that there's a deception that we're detecting about it. And that's unsettling to us because we get lied to enough by a lot of the real people in the world who run the show. I mean, the government has been lying to us for a long fucking time. So now we're detecting a new faction of reality, quite honestly, that's going to infuse with our own and be nothing but treacherous from the start, because it doesn't have to declare itself as being of artificial construct instead of this natural construct. And I think that, like I said, I think the best judges in the land, if they're looking at this, that's the first thing that they should think about doing, is saying, look, just like you got to slap a registered trademark symbol on anything, or you got to, I don't know, that's not the best example. Just like you got to tell people objects in the mirror may appear closer than they really are. You got to tell people that this was not created by any direct human contact. This is all artificial. I think that's the least that we're owed by the artists who produce it. But
yeah, absolutely. So there you go. Tilly Norwood, ladies and gentlemen, coming to theaters near you.
Tilly fucking Norwood. And it's interesting that she shares the last name of one of the biggest goats in sports history, I might add too. And I do not mean greatest of all time, because to me, a goat will always be the idiot loser who's responsible for costing you the game. I'm not going to rise to this military acronym day and age where GOAT means greatest of all time. No, not in my world. It will always mean that you are Bill Buckner. And in this case, I'm talking about Scott Norwood, who blew the field goal to lose the Bills their, I forget, second or third Super Bowl back in the 90s when they lost 4 straight. So
you
Tilly
just said
Norwood,
that.
I wonder how they hatched that name.
You just said that, and somewhere Norwood's in a bar going, damn it! Why did they have to come up with that name?
Do you want to know something truly sad? Like, truly sad. I mean, more sad than the fact that after relief pitcher Donnie Moore gave up a game-tying and game-winning home run to the Angels, or to the A's. He played for the Angels at the time in the 80s AL Division Series or Championship Series. I don't remember which. He killed himself in the offseason, promptly went home and got a handgun and unalived himself. Scott Norwood still receives death threats to this day for missing that field goal.
That is
I
so
saw
wild.
an interview with him not too long ago, actually, and was intrigued because, we all pander to the glory of, Michael Jordan and, pick your celebrity athlete who's been in the spotlight and come through in that big moment, hit the game-winning home run, made the game-winning shot, scored the game-winning goal.
Or even the Cubs
Scott
fan.
Norwood,
even the Cubs fan, the Catching Hell documentary.
Yeah, well, Steve Irwin was his name, I believe. Wasn't it?
No,
so.
It wasn't Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin was the
Crocodile Hunter.
Crocodile
I
Hunter.
thought that guy's name was Irwin too.
Oh, man.
But, I mean...
Steve Bartman.
Steve Bartman. Okay,
Yeah, there
there
you
you go. How could I forget Bartman? Just like in The Simpsons.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, just so you talk about just where we're at. And I know, it's only a couple of nut jobs that are still worried about it, but like the man literally grew up kicking footballs and found himself drafted by the Birmingham Stallions, I might add, of the USFL. That's where he started his career, was in the brief mid-'80s league, the United States Football League. And then, wound up kicking for the NFL's Buffalo franchise, and he's in a position to nail what is a pretty routine field goal to win them the Super Bowl, and he misses it in the last seconds of the game, and that's the end of it. And I think it was Dallas or the Giants actually that won, and right afterwards all the fans are pissed. But it's 35 years later? You might think that the death threats would have dried up by now, but apparently not. Scott still walks to his mailbox every day and wonders if there's going to be one in there, because there is occasionally. So, great world we live in where we're that worried about a football going through the uprights. But we've put, so much of our stake in its importance that that's what we get as a side effect.
Did you know that Steve Bartman received a 2016 World Series ring after the Cubs won the World Series?
No, I was unaware of that.
That is so cool.
Meanwhile, he got a big box of sardines on ice from the Marlins, right?
Isn't that interesting? I had no idea. But yeah, no, the Cubs actually gave the man a World Series ring. And there was some kind of a presentation ceremony at Wrigley Field where they gave Steve Bartman, who has notably almost changed his appearance.
Oh, he had to go into complete hiding. I mean, you talk about your life is over. Just trying to catch a ball at a game and your life is done, cooked. So the Cubs went on to lose that series.
They did. That was back in 2004?
2003.
2003? Yeah, okay. It was a long time ago. And then they didn't win a World Series until 2016.
But when they finally did, all was forgiven because, hey, we've won now. But remember, there's next season. And that's, of course, another inherent flaw in sports.
Yeah, there you
Generally
go.
speaking, sports, it's like, whatever. If you want to go play ball, I'm okay with that. We got to pass the time here. It's the importance that we place on it culturally and financially that I have the biggest issue with. If you've ever listened to the podcast, you know that. So know that I'm not bashing sports, but one of the inherent issues with sports, the way that we have it structured, in addition to those two items in particular, is that the good time only applies to like 3% of the people that participate and who cheer for those participants. And also, it only lasts for the off season, and then it's back on again. The pressure's on to win, or you're unhappy. I mean, so to me, unhappiness follows the sports fan and the athlete alike around. Now, the athlete has, something a little bit better to turn to because they're making millions of dollars to do this. And so they just walk away and go, we didn't win this year. Maybe next year I'm going to go drive my Ferraris and play 38 rounds of golf this weekend at my luxury condo in Hawaii. Life isn't that bad. We lost, but boo-hoo for me. But the average Joe Schmo, who's like literally staked his life on somebody winning, they don't have that option. And so, even when your team wins it all, you only get to know that through a brief off season. And the next thing you know, here are games again, and the pressure's on to win. And you just never quite satisfied with that winning season. Why did I mire myself in being concerned about what these millionaires are doing on the field or on the rink or on the diamond? Why was I so concerned about what these guys were up to and the outcome of what they were up to? It was shaping the literal dynamics of my demeanor on a daily basis during the
And you
season.
had no idea.
Well, no. And I'm telling you, sports is the new opium of the masses. Absolutely. I mean, and you can trademark that right now. That's, I don't care about intellectual property, as you know.
Brilliant.
But I'm just saying, mark it down, because if religion used to be the opium of the masses and it's passé now, I'm telling you, sports is the new opium of the masses, because it has a freaking just testicle hold
It does.
on everybody, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it is crazy. I work with a guy who is just, he cannot sit still right now because of the baseball playoffs.
Oh,
the
yeah.
baseball playoffs
big deal.
just have him in a dither. And his production is lacking. And
all right, let's talk fandom for a minute, because I know you are a recovering sports fan, but I want to talk sports fandom, because I was just thinking about this the other day. My father and I were talking about how we couldn't believe back in the day, this was early 90s, that we used to go to this thing. Now let me tell the story. And then you can chime in, because I know for a fact that you probably attended one of these games. There was a time in Seattle's sports history where we used to go to this mecca called the Kingdom, and we used to walk on the wavy, what were they? The ramparts that were on the outside exterior of the Kingdom, and we used to go to the promotional nights that were Bat Night at the Mariners games. And these weren't just little toy bats that they were giving you. These were MLB real life-size bats. Can you imagine going to a sporting event in today's day and age where they're giving 13,000 bats to the drunked up audience that is the spectators that are there? I mean, that was nuts.
Yeah, they're giving improvised weapons to 10,000, the first 10,000 people through
we
the
all
gates to beat
survived
the shit out of each other.
And I don't think there was ever an incident that I'm aware of.
Not at a Mariners game. It
from
put
Bat
you to sleep
Night.
too fast. They were terrible. They've always been terrible. They're in the playoffs this year, from what I understand. And I know there's that witch's curse thing, that Etsy witch. Somebody purchased an Etsy spell from a witch for $16, and suddenly the Mariners are a winner. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay.
From a Wiccan.
The worst thing is that if they actually do advance to win a World Series, Disney's already bought the rights to make the fucking movie with Tilly Norwood. So that's nauseating.
That's right. But you remember Bat Night?
I remember attending many games in the Kingdom that were baseball. I've only been to one NFL game in my life. And it's funny because that was really my first passion as a young child. And although it sounds like I'm trying to sort of, pass what became, the hot ingot of all of my misery and, this sort of this Buddha that hadn't grown up yet sort of experience with sports, passing it on to my brother. I do feel like he was a big reason why I became so anchored in sports, is because here was the appealing part to little Jack as, a 5 or 6 year old boy. It had nothing to do with the competition. It certainly had nothing to do with the physicality, as they say. It had nothing to do with the physical engagement, the hitting and the violence and, nothing like that. It had nothing to do with any of the army bullshit, all the, it's about discipline and winning and valor. And, fuck all that shit. It's a bunch of hogwash horseshit anyway. So none of that was running through my veins. It never has. The interesting part to me was that all of the teams wear different colors.
Oh, yeah.
And
mascots.
All of the teams have different logos on their helmets. And some of them feature really neat little creatures like dolphins or, and there's guys with all different sorts of last names that I've never heard before. And they all have a story behind them. And, for him, it was a lot more of the, the team's got to win. And I remember when I was forbidden from liking the Miami Dolphins because he hated them. He'd grown up hating the Dolphins for whatever reason. And I remember when it was an obvious slam dunk. I'm 4 years old and it's just like, football, yay. Who do you like? I like the Dolphins. Of course, they wear teal and orange. They wear the most effeminate colors in the league at that time. And they've got a, friggin' dolphin with a helmet on jumping through a sun hoop. I mean, Of course I like them the most. And I never forget my brother like literally like telling my mom, ordering her at the kitchen table, like, you can't like the Dolphins. This is bullshit. Mom, tell him he can't like the Dolphins. Tell him right now he's not allowed to have the Dolphins as his favorite team. And I just remember being so beleaguered as a little boy, like, why can't I like the Dolphins? I mean, it was not allowed. It was forbidden. It became clear. If you want to keep me as your brother and do this, you will not like Miami. And so I went to my next choice, which was, well, Minnesota wears purple. That's really neat. Okay, he's allowed Minnesota. It's Minnesota's NFC. It's okay. It's all right. They're not in the Seahawks. they're not in the same conference as the Seahawks or the Steelers. So they're okay. They're in the NFC Central with my Packers. And I don't like that, but I'll let the kid like Minnesota. They're losers. They're perpetual chumps. They've lost 4 Super Bowls.
I'm glad you brought up the Dolphins, because that goes to my second.
That's my story as a kid of how it all started.
That goes to my second favorite sports memory growing up, which was my vintage 1990s Miami Dolphins starter pro line pouch jacket. I loved.
Talk about, I think it's time to make a Christmas story part 2 finally.
You
that
know,
sounds just like the Red Ryder BB gun.
I loved that jacket.
Red Ryder Air Ryder BB gun with,
yeah, and it had a giant logo on the back of the Miami Dolphins. I had the Dolphins. My brother had the Chiefs. My brother is such a hoarder. He probably still has his jacket. But man, if I still had that jacket, that would be so cool. I just found one online. I could buy one for probably more money than my original one cost. $169, and I could have my vintage 1990s Miami Dolphins starter pro line pouch jacket.
$169 US plus shipping and tax just doesn't seem like that much to relive a memory of that magnitude.
It doesn't. But, you know, it was funny because we ordered it in probably like the J.C. Penney's catalog. And that was back that was back in the day when you had to go into the store and like ask them if it was there yet. Because you didn't have tracking. You didn't have any of that stuff. And
no, Amazon was still a river in Brazil.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it felt like it took years and years for that jacket to come in. And I remember it like it was yesterday. There it is, the big teal jacket.
I had a tendency to latch on to the worst teams in the league too. And I remember in the 80s also being a big fan of the Colts and the Bills because they were both perpetual just doormat losers. And for whatever reason, I was always attracted to the underdog. And so I also latched on to them. So as far as reliving things that I had, a la your jacket, I had a Minnesota Vikings football helmet. Now, of course, it wasn't professional grade, but it probably wasn't far off from what they used to wear compared to now. Because, you know, now they have those space age looking things that they all sport. But so I remember that. It was kind of a Fran Tarkenton special with a single bar in the front, you know, the face mask you'd never see anymore with just that single bar.
Like the single bar kicker mask.
I had a Baltimore Colts Randy McMillan jersey that all this stuff came from the Sears catalog, you know, too, just like yours. The jersey was, you know, they had no official, it was not the marketing behemoth that has become since then. The jersey, I remember getting it. It was downright dark navy. I mean, it was darker than the New York Giants jersey at the time, which was darker than the Baltimore Colts jersey by far, just as itself. It was indigo blue and totally the wrong color. I remember holding it up and was like, this is not a Colts jersey. This is just a jersey that's really, really dark blue with 2 number 32s on it, one on the front, one on the back. And it was like, that's it. So I remember wearing that. My favorite football that I ever had, I pulled from the bin of a local store that's been around for decades here and is still here, but it's an Ace Hardware now, so it's not exactly the same thing. They sold out. It was a Paul Bear Bryant football, and it was foam, so it was similar to Nerf, but it wasn't the same exact stuff. and it was brown, and it had, it wasn't like Nerf was always okay, but the thing that I always wanted out of Nerf balls was realism. And they were always neon yellow or bright fucking orange, and the lace and everything was a solid color. I was like, okay, Nerf, great, but this was like the Nerf to end all Nerfs, because it was brown. It was the same color as a football. It had laces that popped out and were actually like painted white, and it actually had the little half stripes that were on the edge of the ball. Loved that ball. And then if I, say if there's anything, I really wouldn't want any of this stuff back, but remember, obscurity, the love of all things obscure has always followed me around. And so the USFL was a thing back then in the mid 80s, when I was like into that. So I remember I had several sets. I have no idea where I got them. Had to have been a Sears catalog special or something. But I had several sets of USFL team wristbands, sweatbands, and I had the Denver Gold and the San Antonio Gunslingers for sure. I remember those two.
Yes.
Rick Neuheisel quarterbacked for them, and he not only played for UCLA, but later went on to coach the Washington Huskies. But anyway, they called him New Weasel when he was there because he was such a schlock. But yeah, so some of that stuff, but that's all long gone. And, it's tough because it's easy to hear Jack bash the sports paradigm that we live in. And I think it's deservedly so. It's absolutely out of fucking control. It has become vastly, overwhelmingly too important to all of us for the wrong reasons, or most of us anyway, society in general. All right, so on the note of a download for today, I remember last time I finally got to a shorty. This is a shorty today, too. Last time we had justification is always just one thought away, because after all, it is. Like, you ever, know that you're going to run the red light. You don't have the distance to stop. This is just a miniature example, but just you don't have the room to stop, and you proceed anyway, and you run the red light plain as day.
Right.
And then you go, well, nobody got hurt. There was nobody in the crosswalk, and a cop didn't see it. I didn't do it, therefore, and nobody got hurt, and it didn't hurt anybody.
It didn't happen, right?
Justification is always just one thought away. And so it's literally everything from the shallowest things like, oops, I was preparing coffee for me and my wife in the kitchen, or I was getting our hot chocolate for the kids, and I accidentally let a little spittle, or I have a bit of a head cold right now, and a little bit of my post-nasal drip, like, splashed into my kids' cocoa, but I don't want to fucking remake it. And after all, they've already been exposed to it, and they're, Tommy's had it twice. I'm just going to serve it to them. It's no big deal. No one's going to get hurt. Justification is always just one thought away, all the way up to, boom, or stab, and then, take a few steps back and go, well, they had it coming. Justification is always just one.
They ran into me.
Away. So yeah, so there's that. So another little shorty you can put in your pocket is no deed goes unequalized. And that's for all of us believers and lovers of karma, or at least us acceptors, I guess, of we don't have to love karma. We just have to know that it exists in some way and it works. It's always churning because you notice I didn't say good or bad deed.
No, I noticed that.
Yourself, that's all. But no deed goes unequalized. Whatever you do in the world will, in fact, it will mirror the scientific principles that we have learned as well. Every action, equal and opposite reaction, exact same thing for your actions and your intent. Cannot stress intent enough in these little chats philosophically with you, because intent is the specter. It's the shadow that follows action. Action has a shadow, and it's called intent. And all action is just the carrying out of whatever is needed for the intent to become a reality. Sometimes we don't go through with it, but our intent is always casting a shadow. And so, again, therefore, no deed goes unequalized with that shadow intent or with the actions themselves, because you're going to find that as you immerse yourself in this experience, like I have enough times over again, if you have any recollections of your past lives at all, even in the most minute of ways, that that's how it works. All of the scientific principles that we're introduced to are extremely similar, if not almost exact replications, the same thing in a sense that we would call metaphysical or spiritual. The spiritual realm is very similar. And so that's one of those ways. Scientifically, every action has an equal and opposite reaction that it generates. Boom. Same exact thing when it comes to spiritual actions and intent. They have an equal and opposite reaction in the world that they exist within. So something to keep in mind.
Man, all the knowledge that they receive from this well.
It's not knowledge. They're just ideas.
No, but I think
they've always been here.
You brought up a really good point, though, with sports. You're bringing out what is so evident in a lot of these life circumstances, and you're just calling attention to them, and I think that's why we gather here at the existence table.
Just let's frame it this way. I'll keep it brief, but here's a great question to ask yourself and to think about the answer that you would receive if you posed it to the world at large, at least to the Western world that we live in, this country, for example. If there was an opportunity for every person on earth to stop being hungry, even if just for a night, because after all, that's as long as the game's going to last. But if there was an opportunity, let's say, to prevent hunger or suffering at large, I mean, we'll raise the stakes, you know. If there was an opportunity to prevent such a thing, even if only briefly, as long as you agreed to cancel the Super Bowl, would you do it? And I think we live in a time where the resounding answer from many, way too many people would be no. And that's my problem. It's not right that we revere what's going on in that arena, quite literally, in so many ways, so devoutly, and in such totality with our lives and our energy and our time and our resources. We pump way too much into that, and it's wrong. And so it's not baseball that's wrong. It's not, any of these things that make up baseball that's wrong necessarily. It's what we're doing with it that's gotten out of control, and we need to put ourselves in check, because I truly believe we got tens of millions, hundreds probably, sadly, that are going to say, "Are you fucking out of your mind? This is the game of the century. I don't give a shit about some little fuck. He can go to bed and hungry all his life for all I care. I got 50 lodge riding on this game." Just as well as I do how many people out there are going to say no fucking way. And that I have a problem with. And I'm going to keep having a problem with it until I occupy a space in this existence, at least, where that's not the case. So there's part of my fight, just on a little small level, and that's it. It's not changing.
In extended form, as Jack Hansen always does.
Yeah.
I wanted to play this for you real quick before we go.
Dr. Goodall, I can't thank you enough for saving Lolo.
Lolo, that's what they called her in captivity, but I've given her a new name, one worthy of such a magnificent creature. Popo.
And may I just tell you, you've always been my hero.
Thank you, but I wonder, how many female scientists have you told they're your hero?
In your field? Only 3.
Oh, well, good enough. We'll take...
I thought that was good, though.
Jane Goodall passed away this week.
She did.
I've always felt like it's a really fine thing to have a sense of humor about yourself. And so good for Jane for agreeing to be on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And be a voice on the show. I might point out, saying nothing about the current leader of the free world's attitude about those who've portrayed him in a comedic sense, and the fucking death sentence that they've received for doing so. But I might point out that George Steinbrenner, who was portrayed on Seinfeld for years as just a set of hands from behind a desk with sort of a Rodney
Right.
Dangerfield-esque kind of approach when George Costanza started working for him, Jason Alexander's character on the show. They approached George Steinbrenner, about being on the show. And at first, he was all in. He was absolutely for it. He couldn't wait to do it. He'd heard of the success that the program had never seen it for himself, of course, because he's too busy buying and selling human lives like they're ponies at the track to put in pinstripes on the field. But we'll digress from that for now again. So, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do it. I'm all in. And then someone showed him how he'd been portrayed on the show, and he absolutely pulled the ripcord. No fucking way am I going to be on Seinfeld. And to hell with him and all of his writers and producers for ever portraying me in such a horrible and shameful light. You don't have a sense of humor about yourself. There's something wrong with you. And at that level, you need to especially have a sense of humor about yourself. And I've always felt like that's one of the clearest signs of a would-be devil. I'm not a believer in that whole like devil, demon, Satan thing. But if you don't have a sense of humor about yourself, if you can't look at how Seinfeld has portrayed you, because you have very few problems, sir. Your troubles are very, very few. You're Ebenezer Scrooge with a baseball team instead of a factory in the city in A Christmas Carol, okay? So you don't have too many troubles. And if you're troubled by the fact that a few people have gotten the laugh over the way you've been portrayed on Seinfeld in a fictitiously comedic sense, you got a problem. And he's dead now, so it doesn't really matter. But it's always amazing to me the people that you don't think will have an ill attitude about people doing them in real life, portraying them. So William Shatner, we've talked about him because he has an interest. Well, he's just a bizarre man. And he doesn't seem to mind that people do him, but he definitely has a critique of everyone who does. And he feels that there's a right way and a wrong way to portray him. And you just have to figure it out for yourself. So,
Mr. Tambourine Man.
Spot.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you the latest from Existence Brewing. Kind of a news intro tone to it, didn't it?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. It's a Canadian fella named Jeff Canada. This was one of his solo albums called Canada, but he was in a band called Archangel before this. Right up my alley, heavy synths, 80s sound. We love it.
Well, until we meet again at a table nearby.
Looking forward to it.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own Existence Brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.